other variants are still on the way. Even though the Delta variant is currently the most prominent strain of COVID-19 currently, the Lambda variant out of South America is still emerging. Health experts urge that if people want to get back to normal, a significant portion of the population needs to be vaccinated. So get your vaccine today.
Have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunity. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
It's also equally confessed.
Now 500 naira they collect them.
You no talk, they will beat you.
Now 2,500 I dey pay.
On the breakfast, ahead of the February 26th National Convention of the ruling All Progressives Congress, stakeholders, members and loyalists of the party have thrown their weight behind the chairman. The Senate Services Committee is Senator Sani Musa of APC Niger is for the position of national chairman. We'll take a look at the APC convention amongst others.
We'll also take a look at the call by the House of Representatives for ritual killings to be declared an emergency in Nigeria.
And don't forget, we also will go through the day's headlines from the national dailies, analyzing the biggest stories.
Welcome to the Breakfast in PlusTvAfrica. It's a very beautiful Thursday morning right here, and it feels really great to be back on your screen. 2 hours of great, fantastic conversation right here, and I know it's going to be great.
Definitely.
I am Mercy Bopo.
And I'm Kofi Bertels. It's great to have you. Mercy, fantastic to be here with you this morning, looking fabulous as always.
Well, you too.
You're not carrying me along. I think that should be a trending topic one of these days. That, I met you here, but you've not, I don't know, taken me out to anything.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's
you know the hustle and bustle in Lagos, so but it's okay.
It's all right. So, I mean, yesterday was quite interesting. We had a lot to talk about yesterday. It was about a few accused,
They haven't ceased,
Oh, you saw them on your way to work this morning? Mm-hmm. Wow. The latest is Petroleum Regulatory Authority, which replaced the DPR, So let's see what happens.
No,
we hear it's no longer 100 million liters or 80. It's actually 371 million liters that were affected. But we'll look at that as we go on.
Why not? So, and it's okay if the president actually calls, of course. Let's not forget that the president as the Minister of Petroleum, and there's been a lot of calls.
Trending stories. Let's get to that. Very, very bizarre one. A child spotted drinking beer. I don't know whether we should call this beer because it's not technically beer.
Oh, are you trying to make an excuse already?
No. I'm not. I'm saying that calling it beer may not may exaggerate it because this is not beer. From what I can see, it's a brand of beer that is mixed with
citrus.
How do you call it? Citrus. Oh, citrus. Okay. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. As a good Christian that I am, though there's nothing like good Christian, but as a good Christian,
it's because you're not being a Christian, and that's why you have to say good Christian.
Yeah. I'm just trying to be. So, okay. So it's beer mixed with citrus.
Well, that's the description that has been put out.
You just said it yourself. Now you're trying to. It's a pastor watching or what? Anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Catholic priest friend has told us, the popular one who is always on social media, that there's nothing wrong with Christians drinking beer, or alcohol. I don't know.
Usually, I don't like to double into those kind of conversations
because
they're very
anyway,
strong.
tell us about the citrus and.
So first of all, when I saw that video, so there's a video that's made the rounds, and I probably would think, if I'm not mistaken, that this is not, even though it has actually resurfaced again, I would say resurfacing, because at some point, I can't really say if it's the same child we see in that video. There was a time also where there was a video of a child who was having beer, and so, but no matter how many times it has resurfaced, it doesn't even change, the conversation surrounding it. And one of the conversations surrounding is the fact that a lot of people have blamed that on poor parenting. Okay. And some people think that that's not a good...
Blaming the fact that this child was seen on social media holding a bottle of beer.
And having a great time. So I started reading the comments following that particular post. And some persons were saying, oh no, maybe it's possible that he was drinking water from that bottle and what have you. And then there was a lady close by, but you can't really tell if the lady was a caregiver or was the mother or was a guardian. You can't really say what exactly that was. But it still brings us to the issue of negligence. So when we talk about child abuse, we're usually very fast to look at the issue of being very violent with the child. But issue of neglect has also not been considered as child abuse.
Wow.
Because negligence is also another form of child abuse. Because every child, even though we still have out of the 36 states across the federation, including the FCT, a lot of states have not been able to adopt that, domesticate that particular law to say, this is Child Rights Act. Yes. So not every, the entire state, if you look at Nigeria, not every state have been able to adopt that. And the issue of negligence is top on the list. But, usually when we talk about child abuse, we're very quick to look at, the physical harm that's been caused to the child, sexual harassment and what have you. But negligence is also another form of child abuse because according to the Constitution of every Republic of Nigeria, you're a child, looking at who a child is from 0, you want to say to like 18 years. And at this point in time, it's expected that you make decisions and protect this child. Let's look at the content of that. However, I want to make it look like citrus and a little bit of,
Is it really beer? Is it really beer? I wish you could put the picture on screen, but is it really beer? But the funny thing about this...
Are we going to argue if it's really beer or coffee? Are we really going to argue?
It's a question. I want to know. I'm asking to know. But the funny thing about it is that the body, it's a popular... brand that has to go one of the things in the sky, that shine bright, the ones that shine. But anyway, the Twitter handle for this brand that you said is mixed with what? Beer and what?
No, you talked about it.
You said it's mixed with what? Beer and what?
Citrus, a combination of citrus and alcohol.
Consultants on Beer Matters for today. They said this. They had to put out a tweet. Our attention has, and in this time, everybody is just trying to be politically correct. I'm tired of this political correctness and wokeness, and they put out a tweet. Our attention has been drawn, but in terms of public relations, it's okay to do that, But the pressure on corporates, on people is a bit too much because you get called out and cancelled, But anyway, they said our attention has been drawn to a video of and they do their job, which is they say it's not for persons below 18, But because of fear of backlash, they have to do this. That's the world we live in today. But anyway, its attention has been drawn to a video of a child drinking this brand. We're disturbed by this video as it promotes the wrong values. Say no to underage drinking. You understand? So they put that out, which is okay. But the pressure, would have been
No,
strong.
you necessarily not set the pressure, and that's why I came. Okay, so if you set the pressure, then it's okay to set the pressure. But like I have mentioned, the issue of negligence, because you're a child up until you turn a particular age according to Constitution, and within this ambience, you're expected that you should have people who should protect you, because you can't. You're not
it's
expected
not
to
the
make
fault
decisions.
of the beer company.
It can't be the fault of the beer company. But it's necessary that they put that out again as a reminder
it is, but I'm saying
of what they stand for.
The world we live in today, there's so much pressure, on brands, on people, on individuals that you don't know what people are going to throw your way and start canceling you and boycotting you, and then it's now become too much, really. For me, look at what's happening to Spotify. I mean, I'm black, but you look at what's happening to Spotify and Joe Rogan, and then a lot of other things. People are under pressure to just be politically correct these days. That's what I'm saying.
So it still brings us one, and the same thing that we have been saying, that it's an issue of having negligence. Child has been neglected, because if you look at child negligence
by the parents,
or the guardian, or whoever is involved, and that's also a case of child abuse, because within this particular age, period of time, or however you want to put it, it's expected that the guardian parent should be responsible for them, look out for them, and understand what is right and what is not wrong, because it's also been looked at that particular age, they're not able to make some decision and judgment for themselves. So it's just a case of another child abuse because someone has refused to pay attention. But hopefully, let's just look out for kids and our children.
Yes, very important, very important. But some things happen, and then people will be asking, are you surprised? We've seen it several times. What people are doing, what we see on social media, is we see worse than that. Thankfully, you said this one is fruit juice and beer, right?
Why you sound like I'm the one that produced.
There are parents who actually give their children real full beer. We've seen videos of parents giving their children beer. When we're kids, we have parents who, in parties, they'll call the kid, come and sit on my lap, take. They have a reason why they do that, But at least a message must be passed, and I think the company did well to also lend a voice to say, underage drinking is wrong. All right, I know I'm a bit emotional about the whole pressure on, but that's the right thing they should have done. Mercy, let's talk football. People were wondering why the Nigerian Football Federation went back on its touted appointment of Jose Mourinho's former assistant at Real Madrid, Jose Peseiro, as the coach of the Super Eagles after the Nations Cup. In fact, before the Nations Cup, when Austin Eguavoen was appointed as interim, manager or coach, or like we say in this country, technical advisor of the Super Eagles for the tournament, people was like, if you have a new coach who is going to come in and coach the Super Eagles team, why don't you appoint him and let him lead the team? But they said they wanted him to study the Super Eagles and all that before he comes on. Now, after that Egypt game, USA 1994 World Cup, and people are wondering what's going on. So this man, Jose Peseiro, put up a statement on his Twitter, on his Instagram, account to say, I never had any agreement with the Nigerian Football Federation, that we were still talking. Only for these guys to come tell Nigerians and to tell the world that Peseiro is going to be their next coach. Had they signed any agreement? Was there any signing ceremony? There was nothing like that. And man said they were still talking. They had not agreed. So he said at the end of the day, they could not come, to an agreement as to the financials and then some details in the contract. So there was no agreement at the end of the day. And this meant that probably the Nigerian Football Federation should have maybe waited till the man had signed the dotted lines, or done what you call agree in principle before coming out to tell Nigerians that this former Real Madrid assistant coach has agreed in principle to be the coach of the Super Eagles.
So it's just a thing of how we can be very, very zealous and sometimes forget all of that. So usually you probably are in talks with someone and then there's a body language, even though that has not been, but it would possibly just be because I'm not holding breath from them, but I'm just imagining the scenario would have played out. The NFF would probably have thought that maybe there's some green light, there's some hope that everything has been dotted, and then of course out of the zealousness. No, that's what I'm saying. It's not a matter of agreement, but it just shows. I mean, it's okay for him to put that out.
It's a matter of agreement. He says he had not agreed with the NFF.
So I'm saying that these are the possibilities that could surround it. I'm not holding brief for the NFF. I'm just saying that we live in times, especially in this climate, where we could be very overzealous, and then one or two signals could definitely mean a yes to us. And so out of all of that, then we just go ahead and put out that statement. Right? So, but it's okay for him because at some point, this response is coming where you have the NFF also coming out to tell us that Austin Eguavoen will be the interim, technical coach and what have you, and amongst others, I mean, the list has been put out. And so it's very necessary for him to say, but it doesn't also take out the fact that they were also in talks and they were also having conversation with, Posero. Right? So it is what it is. An agreement was not reached. It's very obvious.
This is what he said in the statement. Quote, after several weeks of negotiations, during which there were several news from he put it in Spanish, by the way, so the papers he had to do a transliteration. After several weeks of negotiations, during which there were several news from the Nigerian Football Federation that I would be the coach of their team from the end of the AFCON 2021, he said on his Instagram, a fact I never confirmed. This is what he wrote. A fact I never confirmed. And these did not materialize due to disagreement regarding contractual clauses and financial matters. So that's what he said. We were negotiating, we discussed, but had never agreed. And then it also gives people something to talk about as regards maybe the financial dealings of the Nigerian Football Association. We're well aware that Gerhard Raw, the former coach of the team, was owed several months' salary. And anyone who's coming in will want some guarantees as regards that. Maybe he wanted to have a higher salary than the NFF could afford. Who knows? But these are the dynamics that come to play.
But at some point
in African football, in Nigerian football. But some are saying, you know what? Senegal has won the African Nations Cup with an African coach. The last Nations Cup in 2019, they were in the final with this same coach. And he's been able to build a team. The last country to win the Nations Cup before Senegal was Algeria. They also won the Nations Cup with an Algerian coach, an African coach. Some have said this would be a nice opportunity to see if we can just use our homegrown, coaches to do some good.
Well, the arguments for having a homegrown coach has never ceased, and the conversation still continues right here. But, I mean, it's okay to have this feedback from Jose Pesero at this point in time as regards the conversation and negotiation that's been ongoing that was never, of course, it's come out to say. And that's because you have the NFF also coming out to make some statement that has warranted. That is what I would think. So, but as much as that's a very valid point, I mean, I'm just saying that in terms of negotiation, business and talks and what have you, there's a tendency that you get to that point where you feel like there's a it's a done deal already. Because we would have expected him to speak earlier than before this time. So it felt like the NFF needed to make a statement before he comes out with that statement. Maybe he wasn't even consulted. We really do not know what it is.
In football, you can never make a statement until you're sure. For instance, now a team wants to buy a player. You can be negotiating with that player for weeks and months, but you won't tell people we have him, until he has signed dotted lines, or maybe he has agreed in principle. That's the point. And to have made all these announcements only for the thing not to pull through, it maybe shows a bit of lack of management acumen, to manage information well. Manage information.
So for me, I'm also thinking that, yes, it's also a problem. But as of the time that statement was put out by the NFF, he didn't come out to, make any other claims or refute that. So there's also possible, because whether or not you act, I mean, it's something called in business law that whether or not you have agreed to it, the fact that he didn't say anything within that period could have also meant that he had accepted. It is what it is, and Nigerians are looking forward to having him. So it's just a two-way thing. But however, whatever it is, it feels like you have actually gotten to that point where not, you know, the NFF have actually decided to settle down with having locals running the affairs of, you know, the football and all of the things that has to do with sports and football.
Let's see how it goes. Though they're using the word interim for govern, which means that it's not permanent. Yeah.
Have you forgotten what we've had, like acting Inspector General, please? Acted up until...
I would love to see Amunike given a chance to run the show.
I'm sure we'll talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah, like he should be given a chance to run. He's not done badly, you know. All right, we have a last one, Mercy. This happens to be sort of alleged refusal by telecommunications. The telecommunications officials or workers, union rather, giving a particular network an ultimatum. You know, give a particular network an ultimatum. So we hear that the telecommunications union, under the aegis of the Private Telecoms and Communications Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, issued a 14-day ultimatum to a telecoms company to address certain issues bordering on workers' welfare or face industrial action. I mean, we've not had telecom strikes, you know, in the past. I don't remember the last time I heard anyone like that. But the association, you know, said that its workers would down tools and subsequently disrupt communication services nationwide if the telco, this particular telco, one of the big ones, fails to accept its demands for the expiration of the 2-week ultimatum. And I don't know how we're going to cope, because this network is everywhere you go, you know. So I don't know how people are going to cope if we have this telecommunications strike affecting the network coverage around Nigeria.
So over time, the conversation of having laws protecting the workers in Nigeria has been in question. And so you constantly ask yourself the issue of welfareism. I mean, how are these workers faring? We want to begin to look at the current realities. It's really, really sad. So you ask yourself, someone who's been earning a particular amount for a very long time, let's say 50,000 naira, and that's like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, still earns, you know, 50,000 naira in 2022. It doesn't really add up. It doesn't make sense, because time's evolving. We're moving with the trend. I mean, you want to even to begin to look at our climate, the issue of inflation, the value of the naira, and what have you. It doesn't really add up. So yes, but as always, it feels like, you know, because capitalism is a system of government that usually the priority is usually about, I mean, interest. Interest would always be it, profit. And so it feels like, you know, that system doesn't really necessarily care about the people. It's quite unfortunate. This is a time where you begin to ask the association, the laws, what are the laws protecting the rights of workers, especially for the private sector and what have you. It's really sad. But let's see how things pan out.
All right, let's see how things pan out. Time to take a break. And of course, when we come back, we'll dive into the details and analysis of the headlines from today's national dailies with Ezekiel Inya Etok, a public affairs analyst. Stay with us.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's time for the paper review. As always, we have Ezekiel Nyaitok who joins the conversation. He's a public affairs analyst. Ezekiel Nyaitok, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Always a pleasure to be on Plus TV Africa. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for being available as well. We start off with the Nation newspaper. As always, attention would be on the top stories of the papers this morning. The banner caption says, pressure on Buhari to reject reworked electoral bill. That's boldly written on the Nation newspaper. And eyebrow on provision that makes that ministers should resign to contest for office. INEC to get lists of candidates August the 18th. Okay, so I think there's a bit of a mix-up, with the papers this morning. Let's quickly correct all of that. Of Africans' GDP by 165 billion in 2020, $165 billion in 2020. That's what you find here. Fear grips Petroleum Ministry Department and as scarcity spreads to Osun State. This is some of the headlines this morning on the Nation newspaper.
Let's go straight to the Daily Independent with the following headlines. Let's start with the lead story there. Airlines collapse, fare hike loom as Jet A1 rises 400 naira per litre. Airlines collapse, fare hike looms as Jet A1 rises to 400 naira per litre. That's quite worrying there. Also from the Daily Independent, federal government orders probe into importation of adulterated fuel. Federal government orders probe into importation of adulterated fuel with the following riders. Considers compensation for those affected by bad petrol. 286 Americans, Arabs, Asians become Nigerian citizens. Reps seek national emergency on ritual killings. And at the top of that front page of the Daily Independent newspaper, to 2023 presidency, Atiku's associates write PDP say only ex-VP can win election for party. And it has the writer, why Nigerians should prefer him as next president, AASG. AFC or ACFTA, that's the African Free Trade Continental Free Trade Area. Bold reforms needed to unleash Nigeria's growth potential, IMF. 4 killed as Fulani militia burn houses in Kaduna. Bandits kill DPO in Katsina. 2 soldiers, 4 ESN gunmen die in attack. And that's a very worrying one there. We know what happens anytime soldiers die. NNPC records $224.29 million from export of crude oil and gas in August. NNPC records $224.29 million from export of crude oil gas in August. Interesting timing of the release of that information, you might say. Ex-JAMB registrar Ojerinde plea bargain fails. Trial resumes, and business, political, society, thought leaders meet to build consensus for national rebirth. These are some of the headlines on the pages of the Daily Independent newspaper.
All right, let's move our attention from the Daily Independent newspaper this morning as we pay attention to the leadership. The bold caption on the leadership says, adulterated fuel. Federal government launches probe as firm fingers NNPC subsidiary. That's a bold caption this morning. And NNPC seeks to bridge petrol supply gap. Ipman blames infractions on extension of PIA implementation. That's right underneath the bold caption. And away from the bold caption, you also have, did not blame judiciary for delay. That's what Malami is quoted to say. And Africa needs $784 billion annually to defeat poverty. This is according to Akumi Adeshina. That's what you find there. And national rebate. Elite group meets in Lagos and seeks consensus. These are some of the headlines on the leadership newspaper this morning.
And finally, headlines from the front page of the Punch. Marketers court cases, or fear court cases, FG hints at compensation for damaged vehicles. It's talking about adulterated fuel, the kicker of that headline. Marketers fear court cases, FG hints at compensation for damaged vehicles. And the following writers: customers having problems with fuel suing outlets, arresting owners, marketers. And it says 300 million litres arrive in Lagos as NNPC assures customers of 20-day supply. At the top of that front page of the Punch this morning, NIMC portal, telcos bow to pressure, begin server configuration to VNIN platform. Foreign treatment, reps propose 7-year imprisonment, 500 million naira fine for officials. ACF tackles Akeredolu on Southern presidency, says constitution must prevail. We assembled 100 presidential materials, says 2022 committee. And we go to the bottom of the front page of that Punch newspaper. Wike lends support as EFCC rearranges Jang for 6.3 billion naira fraud. Yeah, he stormed the court to be present as the proceedings were held. Police suspect robbery. Gunmen in military uniform kill Ogun Bisman, flee with car money. And 552 billion naira fraud. Jam ex-registrar operated 8 phony firms, says 8. This is quite worrying, if you ask me. National Assembly PDP caucus meets IM lawmakers back presidential bid. We're investigating video of lecturer shaving students' hair in classroom. That's coming from the university in question. And Zamfara Assembly begins process to impeach Matawale's deputy. Those are some of the headlines on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Let's now bring in Ezekiel Inyaituk, who's a public affairs analyst, as we do justice to this these headlines. Mr. Ituk, let's start with the issue of adulterated fuel and the fact that most of the papers are using that as their lead story. For instance, the leadership saying that the federal government has launched the probe into this situation with a firm fingering an NNPC subsidiary. Yesterday, we were told that the president was angry and ordered a query of the chief executive officer of the newly formed Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory agency. As far as you're concerned, who should take the fall for this?
I think the answer is as clear as should be expected. The head of any section should take responsibility for any infractions or any crimes or any failures within her or his setup. And unfortunately or fortunately, the head of the petroleum industry happens to be Mr. President. Before you take responsibility over an office, I mean, it is already tasking enough for you to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Secondly, petroleum is seen as the main source to the system, and the first and because you are Mr. President as well, will give you the liberty to take a decisive action. And one of such decisive actions would be to put aside whoever is at the head of that institution, so that you launch a major, inquiry into what happened, and you don't want him to interfere with it.
Yeah.
The nation will see the animation and see the anger and see the very intentional action.
Yeah,
president is angry. If president is angry, what's that got to do?
Exactly. There's a history from our checks of a web of corruption and crime regarding the importation or the trade of petrol fuel from Europe, in other parts of the world to Africa by some companies. It's on record that in 2008 the same thing happened with Owando. Owando had to put out a statement calling out and mentioning the name of the oil trading or petrol trading company that gave them the consignment, 33,000 metric tons. That company was barred by the Nigerian government after a probe involving even the House of Representatives, where the then DPR said they didn't have the laboratory facilities to test for what was in that fuel, ethanol at the time. Recently, the federal government has moved on from the swap deals to what they call a direct purchase, direct sale, to say, okay, we're giving you crude oil, you're giving us petrol. They did a bidding process, and 15 or 20 companies were awarded the contracts. Some of those companies, about 4, have been fingered by investigations in Switzerland as being dubious and having underhand tactics. And they were given these contracts. I'm talking about companies like Trafigura, who was responsible for a dumping of toxic waste in Cote d'Ivoire in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. You have a company like Gonvo that brought in this dirty fuel into Nigeria in 2008 that spoiled people's cars in Lagos, for which the federal government barred them is given a contract. And there are other ones I could mention, like Vitol, that has been fingered in a report I've read, on the dirty fuel by Swiss trading companies. So there are 4 of them. So why do you think, or how is it possible that companies that have a questionable history of dumping toxic waste and dirty fuel on African countries are still the same companies that are given these contracts? Is it that our government officials from the NNPC, GMD, which is the sole importer of petrol in this country, they don't know about the history of these companies? Is it that Timi Silva, for instance, Minister of State for Petrol, doesn't know about the history of these companies?
Let me tell you, thank you for the very extensive work you've done, which kind of clears me to go to part B. I want to say this, and I want to say it with every sense of responsibility, that we need to be careful on our leadership recruitment criteria and what we citizens do. The people that get to office pay through their nose to get those things. They can't do that to go and serve you. They can't do that. You can't have your cake and eat it. People that get into offices like ministers or even presidents or even governors are people that we should beg them. We should identify them, beg them, cajole them to go in and serve us. But when we put all manner of obstacles, I'm running for the governorship of my state, Akwa Ibom State. And I'm thinking in terms of service, but you meet a group of people, and the first thing is you want to be governor, land. You got to land. But Akwa Ibom, I'll give them that honor. The youths in particular are awesome. They are starting to reject that concept. It's like, what are you bringing to the table? And that's awesome. But generally in Nigeria, elections, look at what the Senate have just done. They've moved the cost of elections for presidency. We're going as much as 20 billion, which between you and I is chicken feed. That is less than what would be budgeted for the governorship of Akwa Ibom State. I can tell you that with every sense of responsibility, that 20 billion is that for Senate or something? When these things are so expensive, what do you expect? The people that get into office, they're not thinking, no, the people to do deals with are not the clean guys who are going to say, I'm going to do everything professionally, I'm going to provide the service, I'm going to make sure that we go through due diligence. No. You are going to look for the guys that are going to say, man, how are we going to do? We've got to get into the hotel room and say, so election they come, or we need to raise funds, man. How are we going to do? And because of that, there must be compromise. So I think that before we start to put too much pressure on the politicians, we Nigerians need to look at our leadership recruitment criteria and what we expect. Do we want people that we just take what we can while we can and leave them 4 years to run us dry? Or do we want people that we say, look, I don't want any money, I want good governance? You know, I had this very elaborate 4 hours meeting, and people said, look, you give me 20,000 today, maybe the total money I make in elections, you know, and I have 4 years to pay school fees that could have come to me free if I'd gotten proper election. And when you juxtapose what you get with the respect to what you spend, you discover that you got 20,000, but you are going to spend additional 80,000 on your children's school fees, not to talk of your health care and other facilities. So at the end of the day, you make a terrible net loss. So we need to enlighten people. I think the only reason why these people that have been blacklisted, that have been proven and blacklisted, are still brought back. My personal opinion is that these are the deal makers. These are the people that are going to give you very, very unimaginable, juicy, deals. And these guys are going to make tons and tons of money in dollars to come back and prepare for election. You'll be amazed that maybe the budget for the presidential election is something like 200 billion. And that money's got to come from somewhere. And these are the sort of deals. And I think Mr. President should live up to what he told Nigerians, that he's a man of reputation, a man of character, a man of principles. And the first thing he should do, which should have been done yesterday, but I think the next best time is this morning, is to move the leaderships out. And the inquiry doesn't need too much to go on and take decisive action. And he's on his way out. Let people start to fear him. There's too much of being perceived as a toothless bulldog. That's not okay. Oh, president is unhappy, and like, excuse me, please, please, please.
Let's also look at the leadership newspaper this morning. And now we're moving away from all of the conversation surrounding politics and what have you. Let's stay with ASU now. ASU is saying we won't sign agreements with federal government again. Do you believe ASU? I mean, they're known to be signing agreements, and you have this agreement not being respected over time. Was he talking about 2009?
ASU is the father of the enlightened, not children, adults, because university is not for children. I want to know what ASU has done to say we are always having people that have no respect for education. We are now trying to profile somebody who has good brain between his ears. We know that all this thing, whether the honor or the dishonor agreement, has to do with the emphasis that the leadership pays, the premium that they lay on education. ASU knows this. These are professors. These are the leaders of the citadel of knowledge. So they should know better. ASU should please spare me all these diatribes that amount to nothing. They know what to do. If you have a problem, ASU should know better that you attack such problems with what they call first principles. You know that any man that has no value for education will always treat education as inconsequential. What I've just said is no rocket science. They know it. So what have they done as concerning 2020? Look at the businessmen they've gotten themselves into a room. And, when you look at, I happen to be very aware because of my relationship with virtually all of them in education. Let's have a conference. How do we profile somebody? What sort of systems do we put in place to ensure that if you are not education heavy, we are not going to even look your side at all? What have they done? They're sitting back. And then when a government comes that has no interest in education, they will start to have this body language that I really can't understand. Let us wake up. They know that making any noise now is just like pouring water on a fowl's back. They will just shake it off. In fact, at the stage, you may become an irritant to them. But when you start to think outside the box, go into plan B, 2023 is around the corner. Now, who is that person that has proven over the years that education is something that is the air he breathes or she breathes? And that whoever that person is, we're going to mobilize our students, and they have them in numbers. And the students go back and tell your parents that except this man comes in, you're going to pay more. The students will be the one that will go and market their parents' home and market their brothers and sisters, and even market those in secondary school that except that this thing is changed, they are coming into a bad system. Those secondary school people will go back and market their parents, and the parties, whether it is PDP or APC or ADC, they will now start to look for people that will fit the bill. Right now, we are keeping quiet, and then once they bring up anybody, you start to run commentaries. And you know that it's too late to cry when the head is off. This is the time I want to advise ASU. Look, just manage this remaining 1 or 2 years, because you're not going to get anything better. And then,
interesting.
That's the honest truth. And then put your foot down on the fact that you're going to go on massive mobilization, sensitization of students to look for that person that has track record of being education friendly and passionate.
I mean, they have been accused in the past of being used by, politicians to in elections. Let me call it that. They always have a role to play during elections, both on the campus when they serve as returning officers and all that. But we'll leave that for another day, or like they say, we'll leave butter for Matthias. Mr. Yaetuk, the Punch has an interesting headline on its front page. Foreign treatment. Reps propose 7-year imprisonment, 500 million naira fine for officials. This is saying that a bill seeking to prescribe a jail term of 7 years and or a fine of 500 million naira for officials who spend.
Mr. President, we signed that bill that he will not go to UK again, till he leaves office. I beg, leave that story. Let's.
So you feel this is dead on arrival?
Dead on arrival, not just dead on arrival. It's like I don't even know the word to use. You want my president, to sign that you shouldn't go abroad again for foreign help on health care. You want him to sign it in 6 years so far, going to 7. Please tell me one institution that he's put in place with respect to health care that will make sure that instead of Nigerians going out, foreigners will be coming into Nigeria for health care, including Aso Rock Clinic. Then you now want to pass this bill. These guys should look for something to do. Wake up.
What do you think of the fact that the National Assembly, the House of Representatives in this instance, has come up with something like this, up all the way to passing second reading? We move on. All
right, Ezekiel, just as we cost it down now, let's also look at the Leadership newspaper. At this point, there's been the back and forth, and you have saying, I don't blame judiciary for delay, talking about the dispensation of justice. So the back and forth with the judiciary saying, you are responsible, and judiciary saying, no, the executive, you have a role to play with all of that. What do you make of this dispensation of justice?
It's a question of two fighting without and both guilty. That's just, in secondary school, you used to say two fighting. And in this case, both are guilty. Because if you look at it, the judiciary has its very, very serious problems. Absolutely. I don't know how God is going to help us. And then the executive, even when the judgments are passed and everything, do they obey the laws? They really don't. We are currently running a system that running commentaries on them can be extremely tiresome for somebody like myself, because it's like expecting a dog to meow or a cat to bark. This wouldn't get into office. I know of some people that are willing to do anything to be made judges. And all there. And they are all people I put in there myself as my friends. So I know them, I interact with them. And each time I talk to them and they're like, they level with me, I feel pained. I said, God, how are you going to help us? Because people come on television and they say all the nice things, the right things, and they leave and you say, bros, they say, oh boy, if you don't talk like that, what will you say? Leave, you know.
But let's ask you now. You live in Nigeria and you see the way the things are, and in the course of saying let justice, because over time, every time you have a case, there's always a call for justice, and especially with politicians or political office holders who have been accused of high profile, or I mean, they have been accused of one or two crimes which have not been proven. However, do you think that the judiciary has been responsible for the delay of justice, or the executive in this context?
The judiciary has been largely responsible. The reason is that when you pass a judgment and you are independent and the judiciary and the executive refuse to implement it, you know what to do. You know what to do. But you see, these people are compromised. How do you get to be a judge? What are the recruitment? Executive takes advantage of the fact that they own the power. They can pull the strings. So before you start to get too ambitious, they're like, you better be careful there. You know, the executive have the implementation arm, which is like the police. And they have the investigation arm, which could be the police or the DSS or any of these people. And every Nigerian is a criminal. I can tell you that for a fact.
Until being proven.
Including myself.
But you have to prove it.
I'll tell you, I said including myself, because it's so easy. You cannot explain how you live like a
Ezekiel, let me come in here now. Because of the want of time, Ezekiel, I want us to also look at the fact that the judiciary is not solely responsible for investigating all of this crime and criminality and dictating all of that. And so it is not the
stick, that threat, that hammer against so that the hammer of the judiciary is actually, designed by the executive. If the executive gives you rubber, you cannot, hit the gavel well, because it won't make any sound. And the time they want can implicate the person. So the executive have all they need to make even a nice person, a good person in the judiciary to be compromised. It's sad, but we really need to come as Nigerians and have a thorough interrogation of our processes, of our systems, of our structures, to make sure that the rule of law will come to bear. And that comes when you elect executive that mean well and have respect for the rule of law. When we do that, and the political class that believe in the greater good of the nation, then we'll be able to allow each person to do her work or his work independently. That's when we start to have a nation that believes in the rule of law. As of today, we have an enterprise where the end justifies the means, and they don't care about Nigeria. All they care is about themselves. And it's sad. And we must look at this sad reality and change.
Thank you so much, Ezekiel Nyaitok, for being part of the conversation. It is always interesting to listen to you share your thoughts on all of these national issues. We look forward to having more of your time on the show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Mercy and my brother. Thanks so much.
Well, all right. Interesting analysis, and very, very engaging, and really, really lighthearted at times. He's always a delight to have any day, any time. We have to take a break now. We'll check out what happened on this day in history. And of course, when we come back, we dive into our major discussions right here on The Breakfast. We'll be right back.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know. The relevant interviews, asking the tough questions to those that matter. Get the answers you need. Does it mean that the people who were injured, people who were shot at, those who were involved in that stampede are not going to get justice?
It is unfortunate, it is sad that we have a government of deaf and dumb.
Analysis from top experts.
The last election was not really an election.
We feel that Obasanjo has a very special place in his heart for hating Ijaw people.
I think it really boils down to two things. One, trust and accountability.
Plus Politics, every weeknight at 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshuke.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, by no question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want...
Welcome back. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa, and now to our first major conversation this morning. The race to the All Progressives Congress convention hasn't been smooth following intra-party crisis, especially court cases against its national leadership, as well as in some state chapters where you have parallel elected executives. Reprieve only recently came the way of a Governor Maimala Buni-led caretaker and extraordinary convention planning committee of the party following the collapse of a factional CECPC led by Prince Mustapha Audu of the Young Progressives movement. The convention slated for February 26 will elect national officers for the party, but there seems to be no clear plan as to how to do this, especially for the position of national chairman, which is very important in the scheme of things as far as 2023 is concerned. The different blocs that form the party are torn between whether to have a consensus candidate or not, with members of the two leading blocs that form the party, the defunct Congress for Progressive Change, CPC, and the Action Congress of Nigeria, ACN, set to be in a battle for the soul of the party. Can the All Progressives Congress resolve these issues in order to have a smooth Congress? I'm glad to say we're for the chairmanship of the party. And how important is that? Is it that you have, or is that role of chairmanship of the party? We hear it's between the the legacy parties, CPC and the ACN bloc in the All Progressive Congress?
Well, thank you so much for giving me opportunity to be with you on the breakfast program of the Plus TV. First and foremost, I serve as the World Congress Chairman in Akwa Ibom State, and I again serve as the Local Government Congress Chairman in Akwa Ibom State as a young person, and again I serve as the State Congress Chairman in Akwa Ibom State. And I knew the role I played in making sure that we have a successful Congress in that state, and I have the experience in the party politics. What I would like to say is that, surely APC is a formation of 4 legacy parties, and then joined by new PDP when we formed the party. And the 4 legacies, like you rightly mentioned, the CPC, ACN, ANPP, and ABGA partially, and again new PDP joined us after the formation. And of course, when 4 political parties come together, of course there will be a different ideas, because all the parties came with their different idea, different way of thinking, different blueprints and what have you, and at the end of the day came together to harmonize their positions to win power in Nigeria in 2015, which by the special grace of God, we've succeeded in winning the election in 2015. And of course, when you see the formation of even the government since 2015, it's an all-inclusive government where each and every party was given, in fact, people from all the defunct political parties who are considered in the formation of the government. And again, when you look into the leadership, even in the National Assembly, same thing. When you look at the Senate President, Saraki, even in the 8th Assembly, Saraki is from New PDP. Of course, even Dogara himself from New PDP. And again, the president is from CPC, and the vice president is from ACN. And again, when you look at it, even in the 2019, after the 2019 election as well, when you see the speaker is ACN, the Senate president is ANPP, the Senate president is ANPP, and then the national chairman of the party, Oshomole, is also ACN, and Mr. President is CPC. So that is how we've been, in fact, governing the country, and nobody can say this group of people are sidelined or so on, except the person have personal interest. And of course, in situations like this, whether one like it or not, you must expect a misunderstanding among the stakeholders of both the critical and non-critical stakeholders in the party. So, and ahead of the convention, the upcoming convention, I know that, of course, there are a lot of, discussions going on in the country, both in the ANPP and the opposition parties. But the way things are going on, I know that we will, at the end of the day, we will conduct the Congress, the National Convention successfully, and the leadership will actually emerge. And of course, it won't be like a different CPC affairs or either ACN affairs or ABGA or ANPP affairs. But definitely, I came from Borno, and we came from the background of the ANPP, and other people, of course, Borno, Yobe, and Zamfara. Though Zamfara a little bit, adds a little bit distraction, went to PDP, and though the governor is now in APC. So, of course, the ACN convention maybe probably by this week. I'm not certain, but it may be next week, where the zoning formula might be out. The committee, zoning formula committees will be out, and they will now strategize on the whole thing so that there will be no issues. Once they do the zoning, then the whole thing will now fall into the rightful places, and will conduct the National Convention by the
with the caretaker committee and what have you. So what is really the possibility that the 26th of February will happen for the